It's December 11th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the fallout from the martial law declaration. Former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun has been officially arrested on charges of assisting President Yoon Suk-yeol stage an insurrection through last week's abrupt martial law order. Also arrested were the National Police Chief and the head of Seoul's police agency. And the opposition camp continues to demand that President Yoon must be impeached, pushing for a second impeachment motion against him on Wednesday. South Korean novelist Kang wrote a new chapter in literature as the first Korean and the first Asian woman to receive the Nobel Prize in Literature. The Nobel Foundation praised Han as a writer who deeply explores human frailty against the backdrop of historical trauma in her pieces. We begin with the martial law saga. The ex-defense chief, who is believed to have engaged in key activities for the insurrection, has now been formally arrested. Our Lee Seung-jae starts us off.
The Seoul Central District Court on Tuesday issued an arrest warrant for former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun on insurrection charges over his role in last week's short-lived emergency martial law declaration by President Yoon Suk-yeol. The court issued the warrant at the request of the prosecution, which accuses the ex-defense chief of engaging in key activities while the martial law order was in place. While Kim did not appear at a court hearing earlier on Tuesday to review whether or not to issue the warrant, prosecutors have questioned the former defense minister 3 times since he was taken into custody on Sunday. He voluntarily appeared for the investigation. The court also ruled that the prosecution has a right to investigate insurrection and treason charges being faced by senior members of the police. It cited the Prosecutor's Office Act, which allows the prosecution to investigate crimes committed by police officers, regardless of the charges. Usually, the police have jurisdiction over insurrection and treason cases. This means that the prosecution will be allowed to investigate the National Police Commissioner and the Seoul Police Chief, who were both arrested early Wednesday. Korean National Police Agency Commissioner General Jo Ji-ho and the head of the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency Kim Bong-sik were arrested without a warrant on insurrection charges. Police now have 48 hours to detain and question the 2 suspects under emergency arrest provisions. The 2 police officials are suspected of instructing police officers to block the National Assembly to prevent lawmakers from entering the parliament to lift the martial law declaration. Jo is also suspected of sending police officers to the National Election Commission to assist the military. The arrest of high-ranking members of the police is unprecedented, putting more pressure on the investigation. But there are also concerns that the arrest of the 2 officials could create a security vacuum. Last week's emergency martial law declaration may have been short-lived, but a large number of officials from the government may also face serious charges. The police special investigation team probing the martial law incident summoned 11 people for questioning, including Prime Minister Han Duck-soo and other cabinet members. This for their alleged role in failing to prevent the martial law incident despite attending an emergency cabinet meeting prior to Yoon's declaration. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And during Tuesday's late Parliamentary Defense Committee meeting, military officers related to the martial law declaration testified, with some shocking details revealed. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
Commanders and military leaders have begun to testify during investigations into President Yoon's botched martial law order. Lieutenant General Kwak, the suspended chief of the Army Special Warfare Command, said he was instructed to drag lawmakers out of the National Assembly while the order was in place. The comments were made during a Parliamentary Defense Committee meeting that was held until late Tuesday night.
The president called me directly on a secure phone. He told me the quorum doesn't appear to have been met yet. Break down the doors fast. Go in and drag out people inside.
Though he received the order from Yoon, commanders on the ground resisted, and Kwak also figured the resistance was the correct action. He also believed it was not right for troops to go in because of the chance of future criminal action and due to concerns of injuries if they forced their way in. Kwak said he ordered troops not to go any further before informing the ex-defense minister Kim Yong-hyun of his decision. Kwak also revealed that he had knowledge of some details of the martial law plan 2 days ahead of Yoon's declaration on December 3rd. He said he received orders from then Defense Minister Kim over a secure landline to secure 6 locations.
I was given the mission to secure 6 locations: the National Assembly, the National Election Commission, the Democratic Party headquarters, and Flower Research, an opinion polling company, on around December 1st.
After the order, Kwak says he only thought about what he would do if something actually happened and did not tell the subordinate brigade commanders as they could get into trouble. He only told them on the day they were actually being deployed. Meanwhile, there was also testimony from inside the Defense Counterintelligence Command. Brigadier General Kim Dae-woo, chief of the Defense Counterintelligence Command's investigation unit, said Commander Yo In-hyung ordered him to check if a key military bunker had space to detain people inside. The B-1 bunker, which is under the jurisdiction of the Army's Capital Defense Command, serves as the de facto wartime command center for Korea's military. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
And the opposition's push to impeach President Yoon remains in full swing, with the Democratic Party proposing yet another impeachment motion today, with the goal of holding a brand new vote this Saturday. Our correspondent Shin-Yang reports.
The extraordinary session of the National Assembly began on Wednesday with the main opposition Democratic Party set to submit a second motion to impeach President Yoon Suk-yeol. This comes after the Assembly failed to pass the previous impeachment motion due to a lack of votes, as most of the ruling Conservative Party lawmakers refused to vote on it. The new motion accuses President Yoon of violating constitutional order with his December 3rd declaration of martial law. The DP plans to report the motion to the parliament during Thursday's plenary session and aims to hold a vote on Saturday. Under the National Assembly Act, the motion must be reported in the first plenary session after its proposal, and the vote must take place between 24 and 72 hours after that. The parliament will also conduct an emergency inquiry into the case of the declaration of martial law during Wednesday's plenary session. The opposition has called for key officials, including Prime Minister Han Duk-soo, Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok, Justice Minister Park Sung-jae, and others to attend. It plans to question these officials about the details of the cabinet meeting that approved the martial law decree, as well as the deployment of troops to the National Assembly and Election Commission. Meanwhile, the ruling People Power Party discussed ways to stabilize the political situation on Tuesday, but no decisions were made. The party generally agreed on a plan that would involve the resignation of the president and early election, which they see as a quicker solution with a more definite timeline than impeachment. The head of the PPP's newly established task force on political stabilization told reporters that immediate resignation would trigger a presidential election within 60 days, leaving little time for parties to nominate candidates. The party plans to finalize and announce the roadmap before the second impeachment vote on Saturday, but there are concerns that internal disagreements could make this difficult. The election for the next floor leader of the PPP will be a two-way race. 5-term lawmaker Kwon Song-dong and 4-term lawmaker Kim Tae-ho have registered as candidates for the position. The party is set to hold the election on Thursday, but the election method hasn't been decided yet. Shin-Ayong, Arirang News.
Now, President Yoon's political future hangs in the balance, with investigations into what happened on the night of the martial law order now narrowing down to the South Korean leader. We discussed this more with attorney An Jung-sung this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Morning.
I'd like to start with a key suspect here. An arrest warrant was issued for former defense chief Kim Yong-hyun shortly after he forewent an arrest warrant. Now, does it mean he's pleading guilty?
Well, just means that he was voluntarily giving up his legal right to defend himself at the hearing. So it doesn't necessarily mean that he's pleading guilty with the crime charge. So in this respect, we have to wait and see what kind of statements and evidence to come out of his criminal trial.
Well, that no longer matters, with the court having issued an arrest warrant for Kim late last night, leading to speculation that maybe President Yoon Suk-yeol be summoned or even arrested sooner or later. Let's talk about the possibility.
Well, there's a fair possibility that criminal investigation can be initiated against President Yoon. Under the South Korean Constitution, President has qualified immunity against the criminal prosecution. But under Article 84 of the Constitution, there are two cases, specific crime that can be charged against the president at office. So, and obviously, insurrection is one of them. So, legally speaking, president can be charged with the crime of insurrection while in office if the prosecution has built sufficient evidence to prove his criminal act.
So we need more evidence to even arrest President Yoon Suk-yeol for now. But one thing is investigating President Yoon, but at the same time, there are also concerns about over a possible vacancy in presidential leadership if the worst case scenario does happen for President Yoon. What happens next then?
Well, yeah, actually, in U.S. and Korea different system. In the United States, there's a designated successor. Basically, sometimes something happens to president, the vice president become president.
Right.
But in Korea, it's different from the U.S. It's more like you act as an acting person. So what I found was that in the case of the vacancy or permanent vacancy at the presidential office, and the prime minister will work as the acting president for up to 60 days. And if it is a permanent vacancy, under the South Korean Constitution, there have to be election for the president within 60 days, and the new president have to take over within 60-day window. And if the prime minister somehow is not available to perform his duty as acting president, and the deputy prime minister will take over his position as the acting prime minister and acting president. Right.
Then does it mean after 60 days we'll have a snap presidential election?
Yeah. Well, under South Korean Constitution, you have a 6-day window to get the new president to swear in, and then you have to be within 60 days have to take over the position, right?
Then Prime Minister Han Duck-soo will be next in line if anything happens to President Yoon. But we haven't heard anything from President Yoon himself or the top office since he delivered a public apology last weekend. But apparently Yoon's legal team is reportedly looking to appoint a legal representative or even form a legal team. Is that the case?
Well, obviously, it seems that he's calling up the lawyers, the litigators, and through constitutional lawyers, right? So, well, I guess that according to the press, and also I think they have strategy. They prefer go for the impeachment procedure rather than the resignation. And well, resignation is more like you pleading guilty, right? So you don't want to get declare yourself you're the guilty
right.
person, right? So I think his strategy is that you want to go fight for the truth, or his truth from his perspective. So he wanted to see how the court, the constitutional court, decide on whatever did it, or the martial law on 12.123, right, happens, and he want to try to justify what he did at that on that day. So we have to wait and see what kind of legal team he prepared. But it will have the about I think there's 3 months period to finish up the constitutional court litigations.
Well, nonetheless, President Yoon is, in the meantime, barred from leaving the country, so he is put in place in Yongsan for now. But does he also have any limits on carrying out his duties as the president as of now?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, the traveling ban only means that he cannot go overseas, right? He can go travel any place within Korea. I mean, it's not like you're staying in the house, you cannot get out of your house. It means that you cannot go overseas. And that doesn't necessarily mean that any limitation on exercise of his presidential power. So that's kind of still concerning many people, because that he can do many things, unexpected things, right? So
right.
You need to speed up the process to, really, take care about the person, right?
Sir, thanks so much for sharing your insight with us this morning. We appreciate it as always.
Right, thank you.
In the meantime, North Korean media outlets have for the first time reported on the recent political turmoil here in South Korea. A Korean Central News Agency reported on Wednesday that Yoon unhesitatingly wielded guns and knives against the people, wreaking havoc across South Korea. It gave details on how the martial law order was put in place and lifted, including how the martial troops were deployed. Now, the Nodongshinmun, which targets the general North Korean readership, also published the same article with a photo of a civic rally urging Yoon's impeachment in front of the National Assembly. Ahead of the second Trump administration, the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives jointly prepared the National Defense Authorization Act for 2025, which includes a pledge to maintain the current level of U.S. troops stationed in South Korea. According to the U.S. Congress on Tuesday, the bill also calls on the U.S. Secretary of Defense to strengthen cooperation with Seoul, Tokyo, and other allies in the Indo-Pacific in order to enhance its advantage and its strategic competition with China. It also calls for continued extended deterrence for Seoul amid threats by North Korea, utilizing all U.S. military defense capabilities. Currently, some 28,500 U.S. Forces Korea troops are stationed here in the country. Employment growth here in South Korea rose in November, but it was sluggish overall as it remained uneven across sectors and also age groups. Data released by Statistics Korea on Wednesday showed that there were 28.82 million people in the employment last month. That's up 123,000 from the same period the previous year. The on-year job growth in November recovered to the 100,000 range after falling below this level in October. But overall employment has stagnated due to the slowdown in employment in the construction, manufacturing and retail, and also wholesale sectors. Now, by age, the job growth was mainly driven by those aged 60 and above, with nearly 300,000 more people of that age in jobs compared to last year. Now, over in Sweden, it was a historic night for Korea as author Kang became the first Korean to receive the Nobel Prize in Literature. Our culture correspondent Song Yujin takes us through the highlights.
Dear Kang, on behalf of the Swedish Academy, it is my privilege to convey to you our warmest congratulations on the Nobel Prize in Literature 2024.
History was written at the Stockholm Concert Hall on Tuesday. The author, Kang, the first Korean and Asian female Nobel laureate in literature.
In Han's world, people are wounded, fragile, in some sense weak, and yet they possess just enough strength, and just the right kind of strength, to take another step or ask another question, request another document, or interview another surviving witness.
After this 5-minute presentation speech, Han stepped forward to receive the Nobel Prize diploma and medal from Sweden's Carl Gustaf. Despite the crisp cold weather, many gathered outside the Stockholm Concert Hall to celebrate Han's historic win, South Korea's second Nobel Prize following former President Kim Dae-jung's Peace Prize in 2000.
We wanted to celebrate Kang, so we were very happy that she got the Nobel Prize. It's a great honor to come from the same country.
I'm the editor-in-chief of our school's newspaper, and we published a special edition immediately after Kang was named this year's Nobel Prize winner. I felt very proud and honored.
After the hour-long ceremony, the celebrations moved to Stockholm City Hall. About 1,300 distinguished guests, including the laureates and the Swedish royal family, attended the Nobel Prize banquet. At the end of the banquet, one laureate from each category delivered a speech of thanks. Kang gave her speech forth.
올해 노벨 문학상 수상자를 소개하게 되어 영광입니다.
In the darkest night, there is language that asks what we are made of, that insists on imagining into the first-person perspectives of the people and living beings that inhabit this planet. Language that connects us one another. Literature that deals in this language inevitably holds a kind of body heat. Just as inevitably, the work of reading and writing literature stands in opposition to all acts that destroy life. I would like to share the meaning of this award, which is for literature, with you.
So with just one day left in Nobel Week 2024, Kang is set to hold a press conference with the Korean media on Wednesday afternoon. She will then complete her Nobel Week journey by attending the Nobel Foundation's concluding reception on Thursday. 송유진, Arirang News, Stockholm.
Good morning, I'm Yoon Seong, and this is The World Now. We begin in Israel, where Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Tuesday became the first sitting prime minister in his country's history to stand trial as a defendant in a criminal case. Netanyahu was indicted in November 2019 on charges that include receiving approximately $195,000 worth of lavish gifts from 40 businessmen in exchange for favorable tax legislation. He is also accused of negotiating with the publisher of a major daily newspaper to reduce the circulation of a rival publication in return for favorable media coverage. Netanyahu's lawyer Amit Haddad called the charges a politically biased witch hunt, while the PM described them as absurd. During his 4 hours on the stand, Netanyahu dismissed allegations that he indulged in a luxurious lifestyle through corruption and denied accusations of striking deals with specific media outlets. The prime minister is required to appear in court 3 times a week until the end of this month. A Sudanese military airstrike on a market in North Darfur on Monday killed more than 100 people and injured hundreds more, including women and children. The figures were disclosed on Tuesday by the pro-democracy legal advocacy group Emergency Lawyers Initiative. The Sudanese military has been targeting towns in northern Darfur as part of its efforts to wrest control of El Fasher, the last stronghold in the region from the Rapid Support Forces. The 20-month-long conflict between the RSF and Sudan's government forces has resulted in tens of thousands of deaths and forced millions to flee their homes. Sudan now faces a severe famine crisis as the war shows no signs of ending. Both sides have been widely condemned for indiscriminately targeting civilians and intentionally bombing residential areas throughout the near 2-year civil war. In California, a massive wildfire in Malibu Beach, Los Angeles County, has forced residents to evacuate. The blaze is endangering homes and has caused power outages and road closures in the coastal areas. According to California fire authorities, the fire began on Monday night near Canyon Road in Malibu Beach and has since spread to an area of more than 2,700 acres. The wildfire threatens over 8,100 structures, including luxurious beachfront homes, and has caused significant challenges for firefighters due to its intensity. Local authorities have issued mandatory evacuation orders for approximately 200 residents and advised an additional 6,000 residents to be prepared for immediate evacuation.
Today's morning commute was a tad more comfortable with warmer temperatures. Highs will also climb as high as yesterday, but starting tomorrow, readings will gradually go down again. Well, this morning started off cloudy for many of us, then it will rain and snow on the East Coast, with mountainous regions in Gangwon-do province forecast to receive up to 10 centimeters of snowfall with a preliminary snow advisory issued. Elsewhere on the East Coast will be rainy into tomorrow dawn, but today's wet weather should bring relief to the dry air in the east. Checking on today's highs now, Seoul tops out at 7 degrees under cloudy skies all day. Gwangju and Daegu get up to 9 degrees Celsius. The capital area is seeing high levels of ultrafine dust. Then Sejong City and Chungcheongbuk-do province could also see dust levels rising in the morning. Western parts of Korea are forecast to see a mix of rain and snow this weekend, with bitterly cold temperatures for us in the capital area. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That's all we have for this morning. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time, 10 a.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.